have an important official announcement. This is very serious. Want to get this out? Message to Trae Young on behalf of the people of New York City and anyone who cares about actually playing basketball the right way. Stop hunting for fouls, Trae. I want to quote Steve Nash, one of the great player, great coach. He says, quote unquote, "That's not basketball." Trae, that hawk's not going to fly in New York City. Come on. Play the game the right way. See if you can win. I think the Knicks are going to teach you a lesson.
Okay, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio wearing a New York Knicks cap to announce Madison Square Garden as a vaccination site. He's talking about Trae Young, the Atlanta Hawks star, who actually lit up the Garden in Game 1 of the playoff series with the Knicks the other night. This is a week after Mayor de Blasio did the same for the Brooklyn Nets and a new vaccination site at the Barclays Center. As for the people running to be New York's next mayor, the latest WPIX 11 News Emerson College poll finds former commissioner for the NYC Sanitation Department, Catherine Garcia, now leading the Democratic primary at 21%, actually in a statistical tie with Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, who's at 20%, former presidential candidate Andrew Yang in third place at 16%. Garcia has shown the most momentum, gaining 16 points since early March. Over the same period of time, Adams has held steady, while Yang has seen the largest drop, with his numbers cut in half. Crime remains the top issue with New York City voters, followed closely by housing. And Eric Adams, candidate for New York City mayor, joins us now. Mr. Adams, it's great to have you on the show. I want to start with an important question. The sitting mayor of New York City, on the subject of sports, is blasphemously a Boston Red Sox fan. I want to be clear. Do you cheer for New York City teams?
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay.
I have grown up with the Nets and the Knicks, and so I am New York teams all the way.
Okay, so let's talk about people who don't know you. You have made a push here to the top of the polls in this race. The primary is just a couple of weeks away. For 22 years, you were a New York City police officer. Even during your time as a police officer, you pushed for reform from inside the department, sometimes a thorn in the side of leadership at the NYPD. So how are you looking at crime? How are you looking at the police department in New York right now?
Well, I was arrested as a child, and I was beat badly by police officers at 15. But what many people don't know is at that same time, I lost a close friend of mine, Henry, to gun violence and gang violence in South Jamaica, Queens. And so I know that we must have justice that we deserve and safety that we need. And that's a unique place that we're in right now. We need a mayor that understands, as we push for reform, we must also push for safe streets in the city, because public safety is a prerequisite to prosperity. We're not going to prosper and cycle out of COVID-19 if we're not a safe place.
So how do you find that balance, Mr. Adams, between the role of the police department? I mean, you came into the NYPD in the 1980s at the height of the crack epidemic. You've seen New York City at its low point in terms of crime. So where is the balance between recognizing some of the problems that many New Yorkers have had with New York City police officers and also the challenges of rising crime right now?
And that's a great question, because this is a question that we must answer all over the country. We're witnessing what's happening in Chicago. We're witnessing what's happening in parts of Atlanta. It is about rebuilding trust and changing the ecosystem of public safety. What I discovered back in the days when I was a police officer is that we determine or define public safety only to within police departments, and that's not true. We need to look at mental health professionals, crisis management teams. The police play a role in public safety, but not the only role. And this is our opportunity as a country and a city to redefine that ecosystem and give everyone their proper role in that ecosystem.
You know, Eric, Joe Scarborough here. So many people outside of New York City they just assume that Democratic voters are way to the left. I always tell them the story. When I was in Congress in '97, I was flying up to New York City. I had one of the top Democratic fundraisers sitting next to me, and she was tearing me into shreds for the whole hour flight. I was a right-wing fascist. I was terrible. You Republicans this, you Republicans that. And so as we land, I meekly say, well, I guess you're going to be voting against Giuliani. And in the election. He goes, are you kidding me? No, I'm voting for Rudy. I want my kids to be able to go into the city. And I always remembered that when looking at races. Like, even the most progressive Democrats, they want to be safe when they're in New York City. Explain that and explain, again, that balancing act that you have to go through as a candidate for mayor.
And you know, I don't consider it a balancing act. I consider it being authentic. When people were talking about disbanding police departments, I refuse to jump on the bumper sticker and the slogans. I know that 3-year-old children should not be shot in Times Square. That is going to hurt our tourism. I know that we should not have individuals shoved on the subway system. That is going to hurt our economic recovery. And so it's about just being consistent in the message that we could have the safety of our police departments carrying out their jobs with the justice that we deserve. That's why I fought against the overuse of stop and frisk in the city and testified in federal court. I know that no matter if I am in an economically challenging community or a high income earning community, everyone wants to be safe, and that is what I'm going to ensure. I'm sure that this city is safe, that we're going to be a place of growth and economic recovery with new businesses coming here, but we're going to end inequalities. Those inequalities, they actually feed the crime problem we have in the city, and we can end those inequalities. You know, I say this all the time. Our cities across America, you cover politics, our cities are dysfunctional. We are creating the crises every day. I witnessed that firsthand on the ground as a police officer, state senator, and now borough president, and we can turn it around. We're going to have an amazing city within 1 year of Eric Adams' administration.
Mike Barnicle's with us and has a question for you, Eric. Mike.
So, Mr. Adams, obviously policing is a huge issue from coast to coast in this country. The behavior of police, the function of police, the sometimes criminal behavior of police. But New York City is really kind of different from every place else. It's the biggest city, and in sometimes it's been the safest city in America. But what do you do right now about the morale of the New York Police Department, which I suspect is probably at an all-time low? What do you do about 2 cops in a cruiser? They get a call for a domestic disturbance at 10:30 at night. They come up to the scene, and there's about 15 people outside that scene, all of them with cell phone cameras, and they decide to take a pass on stopping. What do you do about morale in the department?
And that's a great question, and it really fits what I have been stating for quite some time, of really rebuild that trust. Day one, after being elected to mayor, we're going to go around to every precinct and sit down and put together a group of police officers and have a conversation. I'm your mayor. What you feel in those cruises, I felt. I've been there. I rode the subway systems as a transit cop. I know how it feels to have someone spit at you. I know how it feels to be assaulted. And I know how it feels to be afraid. But let me tell you something else. I also know how it feels to be arrested and lie on the floor of a precinct and have someone kick you in your groin over and over again and urinate blood for a week. I know how we have betrayed New Yorkers and we have betrayed Americans because of how we policed by a numerical minority that were abusive. Where our failure lied was that we did not rid our departments from those who were not suitable to wear that uniform across this country. And what I'm going to promise my officers is that I'm going to allow you to do your job, and I will protect you when you do your job. But if you are abusive in my city, you are going to be out of the department, not in 4 years, as in what happened with Pandoleo. You will be out within 90 days. We're going to lift up the standard and the expectation of our officers. We're going to make sure they have the tools to keep our city safe.
All right, New York City mayoral candidate, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, thank you. And